From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. The U.S. House of Representatives voted Tuesday to censure Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib for her comments about Israel's aggression in Palestine. Tlaib defended her criticism, saying she will not be silenced. The vote was 234 to 188, with 22 Democrats joining Republicans to vote for it. Tlaib is the only Palestinian American in Congress. She called for the U.S. to stop funding Israel and to end the blockade of Gaza. The censure resolution was introduced by Republican Rich McCormick of Georgia. McCormick said Tlaib had levied unbelievable falsehoods about our greatest ally, Israel, and the attack on October 7th. Tlaib has denied her comments were anti-Semitic. Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana said Tlaib's comments were protected by the First Amendment and that she should not be censured.
I'm the only Palestinian American serving in Congress, Mr. Chair, and my perspective is needed here now more than ever. I will not be silenced, and I will not let you distort my words. Folks forget I'm from the city of Detroit, the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, where I learned to speak truth to power even if my voice shakes. Trying to bully or censor me won't work, because this movement for a ceasefire is much bigger than one person. It's growing every single day.
My friend, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this censure measure is a sham. When someone who is an American, a Muslim, a woman, and a Palestinian dares to speak out for her people, she's told to be quiet. Stop talking about Palestinian brothers and sisters in the same breath as Jewish brothers and sisters. My sister Rashida is a child of the Midwest, representing the best of Midwestern sensibilities. She also exemplifies the rich tradition of the Islamic faith in the Midwest. She's a bold leader, she's a fair leader, and a compassionate leader, and most importantly, she's an American. Standing up for one oppressed people does not negate the oppression of another oppressed people. We should be working together to end this terrible suffering and eliminate these sham censors and get back to the work of the people. That's why they elected us. I yield back.
Doctors in Thousand Oaks, California, say that the manner in which a protester died does not indicate a crime has been committed. A 69-year-old supporter of Israeli policies died after a fall at a protest. The Ventura County Sheriff's Department is investigating the incident as a homicide, but has not ruled out the possibility of a hate crime. The victim, Paul Kessler, was found with injuries to his head and mouth and was taken to the hospital, where he later died. Autopsy results showed that his death was consistent with a fall. Witnesses gave conflicting statements, and police are still reviewing video footage. Sheriff Jim Fryhoff said a 50-year-old Moore Park resident cooperated with police and has been released. The Sheriff's Department has increased patrols around mosques, Muslim community centers, and Jewish houses of worship in the wake of his death. Palestinian Red Crescent says Israeli forces targeted the International Red Cross humanitarian aid convoy in Gaza City. The International Committee of the Red Cross said a humanitarian convoy of 5 trucks and 2 of their vehicles came under fire in Gaza City on Tuesday. It was carrying life-saving medical supplies to health facilities, including Al-Quds Hospital of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, when it was hit. Doctors Without Borders said one of its staff members was also killed in Gaza. 2 more Palestinian journalists were victims of intensified attacks by Israeli forces on civilians in the Gaza Strip Tuesday. That brings the total number of journalists killed since October 7th to 49. The Gaza-based government media office said that the latest Palestinian journalist victim was Yahya Abu Nia, who worked for local Al-Aqsa radio. Palestinian official news agency Wafa announced the death of another journalist, Mohammed Abu Hasira. Hasira was killed along with a number of his family members in an Israeli airstrike on his home in western Gaza. The Committee to Protect Journalists previously said violence since October 7th has been the deadliest for journalists covering conflict since the group began documenting fatalities in 1992. In related news, a group of journalists held a candlelight vigil at Foley Square in New York City Monday to mourn journalists killed in the past month during Israel's attack on Gaza. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 37 journalists and media workers have been killed. 32 victims are Palestinians, 4 are Israeli, and 1 is Lebanese. However, according to Palestinian authorities, 49 journalists have been killed in the bombings. All of the Palestinian journalists killed were based in besieged Gaza, where Israel has been carrying out a sweeping bombing campaign. Nearly all of the journalists' deaths have been attributed to airstrikes or missile strikes, according to the CPJ. The United States has said it does not support a, quote, reoccupation of Gaza by Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said his country would take, quote, overall security responsibility, unquote, in the territory. State Department Deputy Spokesman Vendat Patel told reporters that the U.S. does not support the reoccupation of Gaza, and neither does Israel. He said Secretary of State Antony Blinken was fairly clear about it during his travels. Patel's remarks came in response to a question about Netanyahu's controversial remarks Monday. Netanyahu said Israel will, for an indefinite period, have the overall security responsibility in Gaza after the end of the attacks. Ex-U.S. diplomat calls for halt to weapons supply to Israel. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome back. A former U.S. diplomat and retired Army colonel joined the protest against U.S. funding and weapon supplies to Israel. Mary Annette Wright participated in a demonstration that took place in front of the U.S. airbase in the Turkish province of Adana. Wright, who left government 20 years ago after opposing the Iraq War, voiced strong concerns about U.S. policies that contribute to global violence. She called on the U.S. to cease providing weapons to Israel, citing Israel's refusal of a ceasefire and its continuous attacks on innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Herman Rexton, a captain representing a freedom flotilla from Oslo, announced plans to challenge the Gaza blockade. He noted widespread global protest against Israeli attacks and expressed disappointment over restrictions on freedom of speech in some European cities. Participants who gathered in large numbers outside the U.S. base emphasized the need to end the violence and support the Palestinian cause. The Frick Pittsburgh Museum is facing criticism for postponing an Islamic art exhibition due to Israel's war on Palestine. Museum authorities reportedly said that the treasured ornament 10 Centuries of Islamic Art exhibition would be insensitive to the Jewish community. The decision has caused dissatisfaction among local Muslims and Jews. In response to criticism, the museum pledged to repair its relationship with the Muslim community, acknowledging its communication about the postponement was unclear. The exhibit features various artifacts from the Middle East spanning ancient to modern glassware, ceramics, metalwork, paintings, and weaponry. It has been criticized for devaluing the work of artists from the region. Critics argue the decision to postpone the exhibition under the pretext of potential harm to the Jewish community perpetuates harmful stereotypes about Muslims and Islamic art. It has also created tension within the Jewish community shortly after the 5th anniversary of a mass shooting at Pittsburgh Tree of Life Synagogue. The museum aims to rebuild community trust in the lead-up to the rescheduled opening of the exhibit next summer. The U.S. military has awarded $35 million contract to a joint venture that includes an Israeli firm, which has been involved in constructing illegal settlements in occupied Palestinian territory. The contract is for the construction of a, quote, life support area at a U.S. military base in Israel. YD Ashush Infrastructure is also involved in construction work in the illegal Jewish settlement of Leshem. Leshem has been in the news recently for hostility towards neighboring Palestinian villages. In 2020, the settlement was accused of deliberately dumping its sewage into the farmlands of nearby Deir Balut. That prevented the town's olive harvest and destroyed trees, some dating back to the Roman times. Ashush is a major Israeli construction firm that builds everything from concrete shields on houses in Israel's south, near Gaza, to military and intelligence installations. As with its West Bank projects, Ashush does massive public works and earth-moving projects nationwide. The company was referenced in the Pentagon's August 2nd contract announcement for the construction of a life support area in Israel. Other documents revealed this was code for the construction of barracks-like facilities to house U.S. military personnel on an unacknowledged base in the Negev desert, codenamed Site 512. Despite continuous Israeli aerial and artillery bombardments, roughly 900,000 Palestinians remain in Gaza City and northern Gaza. The internal displacement has caused residents to seek shelter in designated centers or with relatives and friends. Despite the Israeli military's efforts, it has been unable to achieve its goal of displacement. Gaza-based Interior Ministry spokesman Iyad al-Bizum said that the number of shelters in Gaza Strip has reached 225, with 97 in Gaza City and North Gaza, housing 311,000 displaced people. Shelter centers in Gaza City and North Gaza have also been targeted by Israeli bombardment. All bakeries in Gaza City and North Gaza are out of service due to Israeli targeting and unavailability of fuel and flour. Residents have resorted to drinking contaminated water due to the Israeli blockade cutting off the water supply. No aid has reached the residents of Gaza City and North Gaza for 32 days. Residents say that the so-called safe passage offered by Israel's military has turned into a death corridor. There is no safe place in Gaza, and the south cannot house all the displaced people under siege. Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said tens of thousands of gun permits have been granted to Israeli citizens. He claimed the purpose for distributing weapons is to protect Israelis from attacks. Hundreds of new reserve classes have been opened across Israel to teach people how to carry and use firearms. The government has also added dozens of employees at the firearms division. Ben-Gvir has been posting images and videos in recent weeks of himself distributing weapons to Israelis in the North, South, and the West Bank. Palestinians fear Israel's policy of arming citizens may be a pretext for carrying out killings under the guise of preventing attacks. The payday loan industry has been giving tens of thousands of dollars to Republican lawmakers who support efforts to weaken or eliminate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The Bureau is an independent agency created in the wake of 2008 financial crisis to protect consumers from abusive lending practices. A new report by the watchdog group Accountable USA shows the predatory payday loan industry gave cash to the campaigns of 27 Republican lawmakers who signed an amicus brief supporting the challenge to the Bureau. The donations came as the Supreme Court is considering a case that could gut the Bureau's funding structure and make it more susceptible to political influence. The report noted at least 5 Republicans, including Senator Tim Scott, the top Republican on the Senate Banking Committee, received $23,000 from board members of the Community Financial Services Association of America. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of payday lenders, it could be a major victory for the industry and a setback for consumer protection. Even if the Supreme Court upholds the Bureau's funding structure, Republicans in Congress are likely to continue their efforts to weaken or eliminate the agency. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For new content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.